Hello there. You're watching World News program coming to you live here from Algiers on All 24 News with me, Karim Fazakri, and these are your headlines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian troops are accumulating powerful offensives in the eastern Donbas region in Mariupol and in the direction of Kharkiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that some of the foreign buyers of natural gas have to pay the Russian gas in rubles starting from today, Friday. U.S. President Joe Biden announced the United States would release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve for the next 6 months. Also coming up in our program, 2 Palestinians were killed in a gunfight that erupted during a Zionist raid in the occupied West Bank, according to Palestinian authorities. Welcome again. Those were today's top stories, and we kick off our news bulletin with some live updates on the 37th day of the Russian military operation in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin threatens to stop gas supplies to unfriendly countries if they don't deal in the Russian currency from Friday. Ukraine tops agenda at EU-China annual summit. Ukraine foreign minister says he spoke with Polish authorities about blocking movement of Russian exports and imports across Poland. Death toll rises to 28 from strikes in Ukraine's Mykolaiv. The Kremlin said Friday that a reported Ukrainian airstrike on a fuel depot in western Russia will hinder future peace talks. And in a video address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian troops are accumulating offensive potential, powerful offensives in the eastern Donbas region, in Mariupol, and in the direction of Kharkiv.
In
the Donbas, in Mariupol, and in the direction of Kharkiv, Russian troops are accumulating their offensive potential, powerful offensives. We will defend ourselves. We will do everything to stop the occupiers and cleanse our land of their wicked and absurd chimeras.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has taken decisive action and fired 2 top security officials who he claimed were traitors. In an early morning address, the Ukrainian president announced he had sacked the chief of main department of the Security Service of Ukraine.
According to Article 48 of the Disciplinary Statute of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, those servicemen among senior officers who have not decided where their homeland is, who violate the military oath of allegiance to the Ukrainian people as regards to the protection of our state, its freedom and independence, will inevitably be deprived of senior military ranks. Random generals don't belong here.
Ukraine's state nuclear company Energoatom said on Thursday that all Russian troops who occupied the Chernobyl nuclear power station after Russia started its military operation in Ukraine have left the plant inoperative. However, the head of the Ukrainian agency in charge of the area has said that some Russian troops are still in the exclusion zone around the defunct Chernobyl nuclear power station. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Belgium to deliver weapons to help its people fight Russian troops when addressing the Belgian parliament and Belgian prime minister, especially in Mariupol, considering peace more important than trade with Russia. He alluded to the diamond trade in which the Belgian city of Antwerp is a stronghold in Europe.
Peace has more value than diamonds, than agreements with Russia, than Russia's ships in European ports, than any barrel of Russian oil. Each of you knows what it takes to restore peace, to be truly worthy of Europe. So help us.
Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk announced that the Ukrainian government is sending 45 buses to evacuate civilians from Mariupol, a besieged city in southeastern Ukraine, after Moscow announced a truce to allow their departure. Hossein Berkan has more details.
Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk said that the Ukrainian government deployed 45 buses on Thursday to evacuate residents from Mariupol, a besieged city in southern Ukraine, after Moscow announced a ceasefire allowing their evacuation.
We received a message from the International Committee of the Red Cross overnight that the Russian Federation confirms that it is ready to open access for the humanitarian convoy to the city of Mariupol via the city of Berdyansk. We have sent 45 buses on the Mariupol route.
However, the International Committee of the Red Cross spokesman Irwan Watson says it is uncertain whether the planned evacuation of civilians from the besieged city of Mariupol in Ukraine can take place this Friday.
There are a lot of moving parts, and not all of the details are yet in place to ensure that this happens in a safe manner today. We remain hopeful. We are in action moving towards Mariupol. That is obviously a good thing, but it's not yet clear that this will happen today.
During Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, the southern port city, which had a population of 403,000 people, has endured fierce fighting for weeks. A maternity facility, fire station locations, cultural events, and civilian houses have all been targeted by the Russian attacks, according to the Ukrainian authorities.
British Foreign Minister Liz Truss calls on India to take tougher measures against Moscow allowing its military operation during a visit to New Delhi before the arrival of the highest Russian diplomat on the same day.
The idea that somehow we should only focus on Europe because of this crisis is completely wrong. I'm afraid to say the implications of this crisis are far-reaching. We are seeing global food security threatened. We're seeing global energy security threatened. Civilians in Ukraine are still being attacked. And it's important that we double down on the sanctions. The UK wants to see more sanctions put in place on banks, on the ability for Russia to use gold, closing access to ports for all vessels around Europe and the Americas, and also tackling the dependency on Russian oil and gas, because ultimately it's oil and gas that is funding Putin's war machine, and we need to cut off reliance on that, and we need a timetable to end reliance on Russian oil and gas. So we need to do more, and we can't be complacent.
When oil prices go up, I think it's natural for countries to go out into the market and look for what are good deals for their people. But I am pretty sure if we wait 2 or 3 months and actually look at who are the big buyers of Russian gas and oil, I suspect the list won't be very different from what it used to be, and I suspect we won't be in the top 10 on that list.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that some of the foreign buyers of natural gas, whom Moscow calls unfriendly countries, have to pay the Russian gas in rubles starting from today, Friday. But the German Chancellor declared said he expects his country will continue to be able to pay for Russian gas in euros. Nabil Khazini in what follows.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree making changes in the gas market. In order to buy Russian gas, buyers must now open rubles accounts in Russian banks, and if these payments are not made, contracts will be halted.
If such payments are not made, we will consider this a default on the part of buyers. With all the ensuing consequences, nobody sells us anything for free, and we are not going to do charity either. That is, existing contracts will be stopped.
But earlier on Wednesday, Germany's government said it has received assurances from Moscow that Europe would not have to pay for Russian gas supplies in rubles. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz declared that the European countries will continue to pay for the Russian gas in euro.
We have looked at the contract on gas and other deliveries, and it stated that the payment is in euros, sometimes in dollars but usually in euros. And I told the Russian president that it will stay that way. In any case, the rule for business is that they want, can and will pay in euros.
The former Russian president and senior security official Dmitry Medvedev threatened Friday to restrict agricultural and food exports only to what the Kremlin calls friendly countries of Russia. Russia is a major global wheat exporter, and these decisions come as a reaction to Western sanctions imposed on Moscow over its military operation in Ukraine.
The European Union will seek China's assurances that it won't assist Russia in dodging economic sanctions at an annual summit on Friday. EU officials say they will look for signs Beijing is willing to cooperate on bringing an end to the war at the virtual meeting. They will also discuss China's travel ban on members of the European Parliament, Beijing's economic boycott of EU member Lithuania over its Taiwan relations, the fate of stalled investment agreement, and civil and political rights under China's authoritarian Communist Party regime. African refugees say the recent decision by the United States to grant refugee status and other humanitarian protections to Ukrainians fleeing war underscores the racial bias inherent in American immigration policy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Australia is not safe from the confrontation which has the potential to grow into a nuclear war, and asked for armored vehicles from Scott Morrison to strengthen the Ukrainian army to stop the Russian military operation. Scott Morrison has shown support to Ukraine, as he mentioned, and called the Ukrainian president a lion of democracy. Sofian Kenturi in this report.
On Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Australian Prime Minister personally, asking for greater assistance in the country's struggle against Russia, including armored vehicles and stiffer sanctions, either suggesting that Russian victory over Ukraine would embolden China to declare war on Taiwan, and he demanded that Russian ships be barred from entering foreign ports.
There's a need for more sanctions on Russia. Penalties are severe. It will have to pay a terrible price as long as it does not give up on nuclear. It will have to pay a terrible price as long as it does not give up nuclear blackmail and the sea blockade. No Russian ship should be permitted to dock in free global port.
Following a request from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for greater military assistance, Australia is figuring out how to deploy some of its Bushmaster armored vehicles there.
Yes, you have our prayers, but you also have our weapons, our humanitarian aid, our sanctions against those who seek to deny your freedom, and you even have our coal, Mr. Speaker.
Scott Morrison emphasized that Australia supports Ukraine in this war and that Ukrainian forces are fighting for their honor and democracy, calling the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a lion of democracy.
The pledge is that when freedom prevails, Australia will help the people of Ukraine rebuild as well. Here today, in the home of Australia's democracy, we welcome you, Mr. President, as a lion of democracy.
Australia has already promised to provide Ukraine with $68 million in military help and $49 million in humanitarian help and 70,000 metric tons of coal.
Pentagon spokesman John Kirby told journalists that the conflict in Ukraine could last a while if Russia focuses on the Donbas region. He also indicated that some forces have left the Chernobyl power plant for Belarus in order to be re-equipped and replenished and used elsewhere in Ukraine. Let's have a listen.
If in fact they're going to prioritize the Donbas region, if what they say they're going to do, they actually do, an area that they have now fought over for 8 years, an area where there are many Ukrainian armed forces who are also very active, this could drag on for a while. Some Russian forces are departing the Chernobyl plant facility. Again, we gather that they are leaving to the north to go back again towards Belarus, but again, indications are not completely clear at this time.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday announced the United States would release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve for the next 6 months. He said tapping the emergency stockpile aimed to combat high prices at the pump caused by Russia's military operation. Miriam Zien in what follows.
On Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden gave his strongest authorization of oil, ordering an unprecedented release of emergency U.S. crude, in a move that gambled his climate-saving credentials on decreasing fuel prices.
Today, I'm authorizing the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months, over 180 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is a wartime bridge to increase oil supply until production ramps up later this year. And it is by far the largest release of our national reserve in our history. It will provide a historic amount of supply for a historic amount of time, a 6-month bridge to the fall.
Biden stated that it's time to invest in the urgent production to respond to Vladimir Putin and give relief for consumers, not investors and executives. The economic advisor to Joe Biden said that the global supply is down because of Russian oil and that the U.S. and its allies are working together to combat high prices.
We're confident that our allies and partners will provide tens of millions of barrels additional into the market.
The White House Director of Communications explained the additional sanctions on Moscow and how important the efficiency of the sanctions is.
Today we announced additional sanctions on Russian technology companies that enable Putin's war of choice. We will prevent them from procuring Western technology and evading our severe sanctions. We're also expanding our sanctions authority to target additional sectors of the Russian economy important to Putin, including aerospace, maritime, and the electronic sectors.
The U.S. is insistent on addressing the economic problem, but the move gambled Biden's climate-saving credentials and his long-term renewable energy and climate ambitions, according to analysts and climate advocates.
And in other news, 2 Palestinians were killed in a gunfight that erupted during a Zionist raid in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian authorities said funerals have been held for the 2, who were 17 and 23-year-olds. Palestinian officials say Zionist forces stormed the camp looking for suspects linked to a deadly attack in Zionist city on Tuesday. A gun battle followed in which at least 15 Palestinians were injured. A mine accident in central Serbia killed at least 8 people and injured 20 others on Friday. Around 5 a.m., the accident occurred in the Soko coal mine when a section of the mine pit collapsed, trapping the miners inside. The Soko mine has been in operation since the early 1900s, some 200 kilometers southeast of Belgrade. 2 South Korean Air Force planes crashed in mid-flight on Friday, killing 4 pilots, according to Seoul's military. The KT-1 trainer jets crashed near the city of Sacheon, roughly 300 kilometers south of Seoul. According to military officials, the Air Force would examine the exact status of damage and investigate the reason of the crash. The cabinet members of and other 2 officials of Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro have left their positions as they gear up to run for office and help boost the president's re-election chances in October elections. Osama Ayadi.
Members of President Jair Bolsonaro's cabinet have left administration en masse to help boost the Brazilian leader's re-election chances by supporting him as they campaign for congressional seats and governorship.
A third of my ministry is leaving today with their heads held high. It is obvious that they are going to stand for elective positions. Otherwise, they would not leave. You will have to speak in your states, and you won't get any corruption reviews.
The ministers left their positions Thursday, along with 3 other top officials, according to the official Gazette. They are expected to campaign for office ahead of October's general elections and stamp for Bolsonaro's. Top officials must resign in order to run for other positions per electoral law.
The ministry is yours. I have the right to veto. If I see something wrong or not very well, I will tell you about it. The doors are open here. It's a huge responsibility, and you know that a drop of water can be turned by the opposition into a tsunami.
Walter Braganito, outgoing defense minister, was made a special advisor to the president. He's seen as a top contender to become Bolsonaro's running mate. Until campaigns officially states man's successful August, Brazil's electoral laws forbid imaginable candidates from asking for votes directly, but does not prohibit events that Lucifer run rallies. On Sunday, the president addressed thousands of supporters successful the capital Brasilia, which Galore observers characterize arsenic. the unofficial motorboat of this campaign.
Those who were in power at that time did their part. What would Brazil be without the work of the military government? It would be nothing. We would be a small republic.
The lawsuit introduced the slogan "Bolsonaro's the people's captain," and a video displayed archive images from the president's banners for cheering supporters dressed successful. The greenish and yellowish colors of the Brazilian flag. Some hoped connected signifier to instrumentality selfies with the president.
El Salvador's president has threatened to punish 16,000 imprisoned gang members if the wave of deadly violence gripping the country continues. Nayib Bukele gave leaders of notorious gangs including MS-13 and Barrio 18 or MS-13 and Barrio 18 an ultimatum on Monday after police reported 87 killings since Friday alone. The Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan claimed Azerbaijan is looking to create a pretext for launching a large-scale attack on Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. In 2020, a trilateral ceasefire agreement was signed between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russia, which forced Armenia to return all the remaining occupied territories surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh. The northern area of the Australian state of New South Wales was devastated by severe rain, resulting in wild floods. Local residents were trying to rebuild and to fix the material damages, and the area has been devastated once more, leaving many in despair. President of the Algerian Republic Abdelmadjid Tebboune received Thursday in Algiers the migration and Tunisian community abroad Othman Jarendi, according to a press release from the presidency of the Republic. The minister was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community abroad Rumtal Mamra and the Director of Cabinet at the presidency of the Republic Abdelaziz Khalaf.
I transmitted to the Algerian president the reading of his Tunisian counterpart and the concern of the diverse situations in the region, especially with the big changes that we're all living, as the crises in our immediate region, the African region in general, and also all around the world, as well as the effect of these crises on our current life and reality, and the necessity of working together to face all these challenges in unison with confidence and cooperation.
Still with Algeria, the Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, announced that Algeria's production of crude will be raised to approximately 1,013,000 barrels per day during the month of May. Arqab, in statements he made at the conclusion of the meeting of the OPEC Plus Alliance, confirmed that Algerian production will witness an increase of 11,000 barrels per day next May.
Algeria participated today in the OPEC meeting and also OPEC Plus. Algerian production will witness an increase of 11,000 barrels per day starting from May in order to reach 1,013,000 barrels per day.
Police claim dozens of protesters were arrested in Sri Lanka after protests near the president's home called for him to resign amid the country's worst economic crisis in decades. The office of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa accused organized radicals among the protesters for the violence that occurred during the demonstration on Thursday night, when police shot tear gas and a water cannon at thousands of protesters, arresting 54 people. A large number of other persons were also hurt. Back to Algeria, today concludes the activities of the 25th edition of the International Book Fair, which came after 2 years of absence due to the coronavirus pandemic. The edition witnessed the participation of 36 countries, and Italy was the guest of honor, led by Antonia Grande, director of the Italian Cultural Institute of Algiers. Mohamed Igarb, SILA commissioner, concluded the book fair by sharing the evaluation and statistics of this edition. He said the fair witnessed a large number of visitors of 1,300,000 who expressed their appreciation for everything. The exhibition presented in the various Arab and Western pavilions for all segments of society and in various disciplines, while its newness was the development of a digital platform that allows visiting the exhibition virtually through the use of Zoom Expo technology. And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian troops are accumulating powerful offensives in the eastern Donbas region near Mariupol and in the direction of Kharkiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that some of the foreign buyers of natural gas have to pay the Russian gas in rubles starting from today, Friday. U.S. President Joe Biden announced the United States would release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve for the next 6 months. And finally, you followed in our news, 2 Palestinians were killed in a gunfight that erupted during a Zionist raid in the occupied West Bank, according to Palestinian authorities. Well, that's the end of our news with me, Karim Zachary, and the rest of the team. Thank you for keeping it here on All 24 News. Bye for now.